In this video, I'm going to be going over how to divide rational expressions. So it's the second video I'm making for section 6.2. If you haven't already learned how to multiply rational expressions, do make sure you go back and check out the video for that before you watch this one, because otherwise this one's not going to make a whole lot of sense. So, dividing rational expressions. Remember, just like we thought about when we were multiplying them, rational expressions are just fractions. And so if we can remember how to divide fractions, we're probably going to have a pretty good handle on how to divide rational expressions. So how do we divide fractions? If you think all the way back to grade 8, you might remember that there's a bit of a trick to it. We don't divide fractions, really. There are ways to do it, but the better way to go about solving a question like this is to do something a little different. So to divide fractions, all you do is you take the second fraction, you flip it to get the reciprocal. So that's a vocab word that you might have forgotten. And then once you've got the reciprocal, all you really have to do is multiply. So you flip the second fraction to get the reciprocal, and then multiply what you've got left. So if you know how to multiply fractions, you already know how to divide them. And the same thing goes with rational expressions. If you know how to multiply rational expressions, then you've already got division down. So if we do 5 over 8 divided by 3 over 4, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 3 over 4, we're going to flip it to get 4 over 3, and then we're just going to multiply instead. Now we can do a little bit of simplification. So the 4 and the 8, I can simplify to a 1 and a 2. And so when I multiply these, I'm going to get 5 over 6. So let's just go straight into rational expressions and see how this goes. Let's say we had 2x over x plus 5 divided by 3x squared y over negative 2x minus 10. So if I want to divide these, we're actually going to start by factoring before we divide, or before we flip even. So we're going to factor as much as possible first, and I'll get into why that's the case later. But just trust me, you want to start by factoring. So in this case, the 2x and the x plus 5, there's nothing we can do there. The 3x squared y, nothing going on there. But the negative 2x minus 10, we can take out a negative 2, which is going to leave us with x plus 5. All right, now that we've factored, we can do our flipping to get our reciprocal and multiply. So that's going to get us 2x over x plus 5 multiplied by 3x squared y, or sorry, not by that, by negative 2 over x plus, times x plus 5 over 3x squared y. So we've flipped, we've multiplied, and now we're just going to do our multiplication. So we can cancel out the x plus 5s. Not much else we can deal with. We do have an x on the top and the bottom, so we'll get to those in a sec. 2x times negative 2 is going to get me negative 4x. The 3x squared y is just going to be a 3x squared y, and so I can reduce the x and the x squared. So remember, we can just subtract the exponents. So that's going to get me negative 4 over 3xy as my answer. So for my NPVs, I've got a few here. So x can't be 0 and y can't be 0. We can see that from just our final answer. But we also have x can't be negative 5 from that x plus 5 that we had right at the beginning. Moving on to another one. So x squared plus 4x minus 12 over 2x squared minus 18x plus 28, and then divided by x squared minus 36 over x squared minus 6x. So if we go through and do all of our factoring right from the get-go, we'll see that this one has x plus 6 times x minus 2 over 2 times x minus 7 times x minus 2. So remember, you're going to have to take out a common factor for this one. Right? So be really careful with those. Make sure you take out your common factors. And then on the right side, the top is a difference of squares, so that's going to factor to x plus 6 times x minus 6 And on the bottom, we can take out a common factor of x, which is also going to leave me with x minus 6. So now we want to flip our right fraction. And so that's going to give me x plus 6 times x minus 2 over 2 times x minus 7 times x minus 2 multiplied by x times x minus 6 over x plus 6 times x minus 6. All right, we've got a whole bunch of stuff we can start canceling out. So we've got an x plus 6 on the top and the bottom. We've got an x minus 2. We've got an x minus 6. And so once all of that's gone, we're left with x over 2 times x minus 7. For NPVs, we've got that x can't be 7, 2, 6, or negative 6. But there's actually one more NPV. So those 4 you can get from just looking at this step right here, right? We can see all those. But there's one more NPV that people are often going to miss. And that NPV is 0. And that comes from this x that was on the bottom before we flipped. So this is why we have to factor before we flip things, because if you flip things first, you're going to miss some things that were in your denominator at one point or another. So always factor before you start flipping things so you don't miss any of your NPVs. So just to write a little blurb for that. So if something was in the denominator at any point in the question, right? It doesn't matter if it's at the start or the end. It's still going to give you an NPV. All right, there we go. So let's expand this out a little bit and make it a little bit tougher. So we're going to have x squared plus 8x plus 15 over x squared minus x minus 12 divided by x squared minus 4x minus 45 over 2x squared plus 26x plus 60. And then we're going to actually have 3 fractions here, so 3 rational expressions. So times 4x squared minus 29x plus 7 over 6x cubed, right? We haven't seen a cube in a while, plus 60x squared. So this one's for you to try on your own. It's a lot of factoring. So take your time, make sure you get all of the factoring really done correctly. Cancel some stuff out, well, flip some things, cancel some stuff out, and see where you can end up with at the end. Okay, so our factoring. We're going to end up with x plus 3 times x plus 5 over x minus 4 times x plus 3 in our first fraction. Second fraction is going to get you x minus 9 times x plus 5 over 2 times x plus 10 times x plus 3. And then the third one is going to get you 4x minus 1 times x minus 7 over, and this one has a common factor of 6x squared, and then x plus 10. Okay, there's a lot going on there. So let's flip some things. So remember, when you're dealing with division, you only flip the fraction immediately after the division sign. So you're not going to flip the fraction at the end here. Our division is only affecting the fraction in the middle, the rational expression in the middle, so that's the only one that's getting flipped. And so we're going to rewrite this out one more time. And we're going to be able to cancel a whole bunch of stuff. So remember, if it seems like not much is canceling, there's a good chance that you might have messed up on your factoring. It's not a guarantee, right? Sometimes stuff just doesn't cancel. But typically, when you're presented with these questions, the expectation is that things are going to probably end up canceling. So if things don't, double check your factoring, make sure that you got everything done right. All right, so going through here. In our first fraction, we have an x plus 3 in the top and the bottom, so we can just cancel those out right away. Then we've got x plus 5 and x plus 5. And then we have x plus 10 and x plus 10. And so once we get rid of all of those, oh, actually, there's one more thing we can do. We've got a 2 and a 6. Those are going to cancel. And we can turn those into a 1 and a 3. All right, and so with that out of the way, if we put everything together, what we've left with up top is x plus 3 times 4x minus 1 times x minus 7. And then on the bottom, we've got x minus 4, x minus 9, and then the 3 and the x squared, don't put those at the end. So typically things that aren't being added or subtracted are put at the front. So we're going to put that 3x squared right up at the front of this. And so there we go. This one is as simplified as we can make it. And then we're going to have a whole bunch of NPVs. So x cannot be positive 4, negative 3, positive 9, negative 5, 0, or negative 10. So a whole bunch of things going on there. All right, I'm going to finish this off with just a quick little word problem. Now, but before I do, just one thing I want to mention. If you end up in a question with something like x plus 3 times x plus 3, you can absolutely rewrite that as x plus 3 squared. It's not mandatory at all, but it can be helpful to maybe make things a little bit simpler. So when you're dealing with an answer, that is something that you can do. Just don't feel obligated to. All right, our last one for this video. So we're going to be looking at area. We're going to say the area of a rectangle is given by this rational expression. So x squared plus 14x plus 33 over x minus 6. And then I'm going to tell you the width of that rectangle, which is going to be x plus 3 over x squared plus 2x minus 48. And what I want to know is the length of the rectangle. And so the key thing to think about when you're dealing with area is, well, what's the area of a rectangle in general? So ignoring all these polynomials, remember the area is the length times the width. But we don't want the area. We actually know the area. We want the length. So to get that, we're going to solve for L by dividing both sides of this formula by W. And so what I end up with is my length equals my area divided by my width. You can write it as a fraction, but it's going to be easier to write it as a division like this. So we've got L equals our area, which was x squared plus 14x plus 33 over x minus 6, divided by our width, which was x plus 3 over x squared plus 2x minus 48. And so now it's just a division question. There's not a whole lot to this one. So we do some factoring. We've got x plus 11 times x plus 3 over x minus 6 divided by x plus 3 over x minus 6 times x plus 8. We flip, we multiply, so this becomes x plus 11 times x plus 3 over x minus 6 times x minus 6 times x plus 8 over x plus 3. And so we can just do some canceling, right? Get rid of the x plus 3's, get rid of the x minus 6's. And so all we're left with is x plus 11 times x plus 8. So that's what our length is. And for NPVs, we have that x cannot be 6, negative 3, or negative 8. So area is a really common thing to have pop up when you're dealing with multiplication and division. So I could ask you to find the area by multiplying the length and the width, or like this one, I could ask you to find the length or the width by dividing a couple of other things. So just expect that to be something that you might see pop up from time to time. So there we are. That is all that we've got for division, right? It's just multiplication. So after this, we're going to learn how to add and subtract. That is going to be a little bit more difficult. So once you're ready, move on to those videos and give it a shot.